Good morning, dear students. I hope all of you are doing well. All of you are safe and healthy. So we will be continuing with the remaining part of the course through online video lectures. I was delaying uploading these video lectures because I was still hoping that somehow we will get a chance to have regular classroom lectures in the month of June, but it seems that it won't be possible now. So we will complete the remaining lectures through the online mode. Just to give you a brief update that I have uploaded tutorial number 5 on Moodle. You can go and check Moodle. I have also included additional online courses. So digital signal processing course. So the part of remaining part of this course which we will be covering now which would essentially form the basis of digital signal processing and advanced digital signal processing. So you will also find the topics which we are covering in this course in this NPTEL course on digital signal processing from IIT Delhi. For textbooks, most of the topics which I will be covering in the remaining part of this course will still be from Oppenheim, Wiliski and Hamid. However, I would be referring to the reference number 3, JG Proakis, Digital Signal Processing Principles, Algorithms and Applications as well. So I would be widely referring to this book as well. So it is advised that you have this book with you as well. Right, so the idea is that I would be using this writing pad to write the lectures. I will keep the lectures short, around 20 to 30 minutes. However, I will cover the equal number of topics which I would have covered in a regular 1 hour offline class. So during the lecture, it is highly advised that you watch these lectures with your notebook and a pen. At times I will ask you to pause the video and solve a problem or derive something or to think on some question which I have asked you. So you should follow these instructions, then only you can extract maximum out of these video lectures. So you should keep a notebook handy with you while solving this, and you should solve it along as I am solving. So this will still be, I will try to keep this video lecture as close to the classroom mode as possible. Of course, I cannot see your faces, so I don't get a feedback. To get a feedback, we will be actively using this Moodle interface now on. So let us briefly recap what we have done so far. So far we have covered 30 hours of classroom lectures plus 2 additional lectures, so total 32 hours of interaction, 30 hours of lectures and 2 hours of Python session. Let us briefly recap what all we have covered so far. So there were 4 main modules in this course. First module was time domain analysis. So in time domain analysis, we started with definition and classification of signals. We saw standard signals, which included sinusoidal signals, exponential signals, unit step and unit impulse signals. Each of these signals, as you might have understood by this time, that they have their own importance in our system's analysis. Then we had seen representation of arbitrary signal in terms of unit impulse signal for continuous time as well as discrete time. Then we had seen system description. We had seen system properties, which included invertibility, memory, causality, stability, linearity and time invariance. You must remember by now that linearity and time invariance are some special properties. Particularly if a system is linear and time invariant, there is a nice input-output relationship for that system in the time domain, and we had derived this relationship. The mathematical operation which relates the input signal to the output signal was convolution. We had seen that the convolution of the response of the system to a unit impulse, which we call impulse response, So the output is the convolution of impulse response and the input signal. Then we proceeded to the module 2, which was frequency domain analysis of continuous time signals. Here we started with trigonometric Fourier series. Here we saw two important conditions, Dirichlet condition and and Gibbs phenomena. Then we extended this trigonometric Fourier series to exponential Fourier series. This was for periodic signal. This trigonometric Fourier series was also for periodic signal. Then we generalized our analysis for complex exponential Fourier series to we generalized it from a periodic to an aperiodic signal as well. What we got was Fourier transform. In Fourier transform, we saw properties of Fourier transform. There were a large number of properties. I am not listing all of these here. And then we saw Fourier transform of common signals. We also covered quite a bit of applications. So we saw some regular circuit application of the Fourier transform properties and principles which we have studied for circuits, RC circuits, RL circuits, etc. We saw a very interesting manifestation of causality of a system in material properties, which gives us the famous Kramer-Kronig relationship. We derived this Kramer-Kronig relationship. We derived Hessenberg's uncertainty principle for the special case of Gaussian wave packet. We revisited Young's double slit experiment, which you had covered, studied in physics in high school. And we saw how Young's double slit experiment and diffraction pattern is actually related to the Fourier transform properties. For communication systems, we saw the example of analog amplitude modulation system. We saw how the properties of Fourier transform help us design an AM communication system. We covered few more topics, which included Parseval's relationship, correlation, autocorrelation functions, Wiener-Khinchin theorem. Then we came to sampling. We saw that if we sample a continuous time signal at a sampling rate which is greater than the Nyquist sampling frequency, we can reconstruct the original signal. So we saw the Nyquist sampling theorem, and we saw how the reconstruction of continuous time signal from sample signal actually works. Then we proceeded to module 3, which was the frequency domain analysis of discrete time systems, discrete time signals and systems. So here we had seen that complex exponentials are eigenfunctions of discrete time LTI systems. We had seen discrete time exponential Fourier series. There was a major difference between discrete time exponential Fourier series and continuous time exponential Fourier series, and we spent quite a bit of time on understanding the difference. The major difference is that in a discrete time periodic signal, there are finite number of basis exponential functions. So the summation of a exponential Fourier series is finite for discrete time domain. Then we had seen, we had again generalized this periodic discrete time signal to aperiodic signal, which gave us discrete time Fourier transform, which we will be also calling Fourier transform because when it's Fourier transform of a discrete time system. We had seen the properties of discrete time Fourier transform in the last lecture, and then we had just started with DTFT of some common signals, and this is where we had stopped in our last lecture, which was lecture number 30. The topics which we need to cover in the remaining next around 10 to 12 lectures are DTFT of signals, which we will cover today, inverse DTFT and some problems on DTFT. Then I will also introduce you to discrete Fourier transform. This will form a major part of your digital signal processing course, but I will introduce you to what is a discrete Fourier transform, how that is different from DTFT. Then we will come to module 4, which is the generalized frequency domain analysis. Here there are two major topics, Z transform and the region of convergence, Laplace transform and the region of convergence. We will also look into some of the applications, remaining applications which are there. So now let me come to the today's agenda. In today I would be covering DTFT of signals. I will complete the problem which I had started in the last class, and we will derive the DTFT of unit step signal. This would be the main focus of today's lecture. Okay, so let us get started. Let me quickly write down the synthesis and analysis equation for DTFT. So, if x of n is a discrete time signal, if x of n is a discrete time signal, then I would call x of omega as the DTFT or the Fourier transform of x of n, and that is given by summation over n going from minus infinity to plus infinity x of n e to the power minus j omega n. This is the analysis equation. And if you know what is x of omega, you can synthesize your original signal using the synthesis equation. D omega, this is the synthesis equation. So the point to note is that x of n is a discrete time signal, square bracket represents discrete time signal, whereas omega n is a discrete variable, whereas omega is a continuous variable. We had seen and discussed in detail why x of omega would be periodic, and why just integrating x of omega over 2 pi is enough to synthesize x of n. So those of you who are absent in lecture number 28-29, they are advised to refer back to these lecture notes as to how we got these equations, right? So I think in the class we had solved, we were computing DTFT of some signals. Compute DTFT of x of n, and I think here for first example we had seen x of n was a to the power n un, where a was a real number between 0 and 1. So we had solved this in the class and got the expression for x of n as 1 upon 1 minus a e to the power minus j omega. We had also written this in the, so this is a complex signal, so we had also written this as the magnitude of x of omega would be root over 1 minus 2 alpha cos omega, 2 I'm using a here, cos omega a square, and the phase of x of omega was minus tan inverse a sin omega upon 1 minus a cos omega. And then I had asked you to plot these. In the classroom we had seen some typical values, and so we had seen what would be the how would this curve look like. So since now we are in online mode, I have the liberty to also plot these things. So let me run this code and show you how this would look like. So the top figure here shows the absolute value, magnitude of x of omega, and the bottom figure shows the angle of x of omega. And if you change the value of a, so if you change the value of a, the shape is going to change. So if you have not already done, this is a simple exercise. You can just open Python and plot these and see how the Fourier transform behaves. So the point you should note is that this is periodic with period 2 pi. You can also see this from the expression. So for next problem, I had given x of n as a to the power mod n, and your a is still a is a real number between 0 and 1. So if I have to plot these, so this is how this signal would look like. This will 1 be 1, and then this will be a, this will be a square, a cube, and so on. Similarly on the negative n side as well, and so on. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Right. So now if you want to compute the Fourier transform of this, x of omega is simply summation n going from minus infinity to plus infinity a to power mod n e to the power minus j omega n. You might be tempted to just make the summation unidirectional, but you should be careful about that. So n is equal to going from minus 1 to minus infinity to minus 1, e to the power minus n e to the power minus j omega n plus infinity a to the power n e to the power minus j omega n. This part you have already solved in the previous question. This is the additional part which is there. So in here, if I say let m is equal to minus n only for the first term, then what I get is summation m going from infinity to 1 a to the power m e to the power j omega m plus summation n is equal to 0 to infinity a to the power n e to the power minus j omega n. So this would give you a to the power a j omega, this is the first term, and your r is also a e to the power j omega plus 1 by, because here the first term would be 1, minus a e to the power minus j omega. J omega. So if you simplify this, so if you simplify this, you would get 1 minus a square upon 1 minus 2a cos omega plus a square. So be careful about this part. It is tempting to just change the sign and write 2 here and take 1 out or something like that, but be careful there. This does not give you the same result, because a to power mod n is an even function. However, a to power mod n into e to the power j omega n is not an even function. So you can't just change the limit and multiply it by 2. So this is the expression. So now if you want to plot this, let us see how. So this is x of omega. So if you look at this is an even signal, so its Fourier transform should be purely real. It should be purely real. So if we plot it, so I have already written down the expression here. So if we plot it, this is how it looks like, right? The phase is 0 as expected, right? So you should also plot this. It's interesting to plot these functions. So now we take the next case, which is simple but interesting. X of n is equal to 1. So it is a discrete time constant signal. So what you have is R1s here. Minus 2 and so on. So this is x of n and this is variable n. So now any guesses on this? What would be the Fourier transform of constant DC? So you know that for continuous time signal, right? For continuous time constant DC has a Fourier transform of, it is a Fourier transform of an impulse function. So we should be able to get impulse function here as well. There is an additional thing that x of omega for discrete time signal should be periodic with period 2 pi. So let's see how we whether we can derive that expression. So at this point I would ask you to pause the video and solve this problem on your own. The approach is that you should take this expression and see what happens to this in the limit when a goes to 1. So I mean that's what you will get, right? When in this signal, if a goes to 0, this will become a constant DC signal. Right, so you should try to solve it on your own. Since you are not in a classroom setting, you may take more time than 5 to 10 minutes. But try to solve it on your own. Right, so yeah, let me proceed with the solution. So here x of n is limit a going to 1, a to the power n mod n. So taking dtft on both sides, I would get x of omega as limit a going to 1 and Fourier transform of a to power mod n. So x of omega is limit a tending to 1, and what is the Fourier transform of a to power mod n? We have just now derived it. So it is 1 minus a square upon 1 minus 2a cos omega plus a square. Now this is an interesting function. So when omega is, or say when cos omega is not equal to 1, in that case, that is when omega is not equal to 0 or 2m pi m being an integer, in that case cos omega is not equal to 1. So if you substitute a is equal to 1, you simply get x of omega as 0. Right, so we have x of omega as 0 when omega is not equal to 0 or a multiple of 2 pi. However, when omega is either 0 or multiple of 2m or multiple of 2 pi, in that case we have cos omega as 1, right? Cos omega is 1, and x of omega is given by limit a going to 1 1 minus a square upon 1 minus 2a plus a square. So I can write this as limit a going to 1 minus a into 1 plus a divided by 1 minus a whole square. So this cancels out. So what you have is x of omega is limit a going to 1 by a upon 1 plus a divided by 1 minus a. So this is equal to infinity. So what this tells you is that x of omega is equal to 0 when omega is not equal to 0 or to m pi, and this is equal to infinity when omega is equal to 0 or a multiple of 2 pi. So this sound looks familiar. What is this? This is a delta Dirac function, property of a delta Dirac function. We can mathematically represent it with a delta Dirac function. So I can write this as so if there were only this condition was x of omega was infinite only for omega is equal to 0, then I would have written this as x of delta of omega. But this is true for all multiples of 2 pi when omega is a multiple of 2 pi. So I will write this as 2 m pi, and I will take a summation over this. Right, and then I will multiply this by constant because I don't know the proportionality constant yet. I don't know what is the area under this curve yet, right? And this will be summation over m, right? So now what we need to do is what is a. So if you remember, for continuous time signal we had derived this a by integrating and finding what is the area and then applying the limit on the area. However, it is a bit more complicated to do that integration for this particular example. So what we will do is we will simply use the synthesis equation. We will simply use the synthesis equation to get the value of a. So what we have is so what we have is x of n is equal to 1 by 2 pi integral over one time period of a into delta omega e to the power. So I mean I am integrating it near over one period over near 0. So I am using just this term e to the power j omega and d omega. Yeah, or I mean you can even write this summation, complete summation here. It won't change, but yeah. So I can write this summation a minus 2 pi m e to the power j omega n. If I integrate over one near this 1 pi, I would be getting the value as 1 by 2 pi into a, right, or whatever integral over whatever 2 pi range I assume. So this is equal to what? This is equal to 1. So in that case in that case I would be getting a is equal to 2 pi, right? So x of, finally we get x of omega as 2 pi summation delta omega minus 2 pi m, and summation is over m going from minus infinity to plus infinity. Right, so now you know what is the Fourier transform of, if I want to write it in terms of Fourier transform pair, the Fourier transform of one is 2 pi summation I am going from minus infinity to infinity omega 2 pi m. Right. So yeah, I mean I can take another example. So I think this was the C case. So if I take D, if x of n is delta n, its Fourier transform is straightforward. X of omega would be summation delta n e to the power j minus j omega n to infinity. So your x of omega would simply be 1. If your x of n was delta of n minus say n naught, your x of omega would be e to the power minus j omega n naught. Right, so this D example is straightforward. This is what was important to derive today. So let us now derive another important case of the Fourier transform of a unit step function. Right, so CD, and this is I think E. So x of n is u of n, x of n is u of n. What is x of omega? So at this point I would again ask you to pause the video and derive it on your own. This derivation is not clearly given in Oppenheim's book as well. In Oppenheim they are using accumulation property of DTFT to derive u of n, of Fourier transform of u of n. That is not a very rigorous proof because we have not derived the they have not derived the accumulation property as well. So at this point I would ask you to pause the video and derive this on your own. You may take half a day. You can search the internet. There can be various other methods. I would be covering one method which I find simple to explain, like what's going on. So as you might have guessed, that u of n we should be able to derive u of n just by applying the limit in the first example which we had seen. Where did it go? Yeah. So applying the limit a going to 1 in this case itself. So if I just substitute a is equal to 1 here, so if I just substitute a is equal to 1 here, I should be able to get x of omega, but that's not true. Why? Because you get this expression, this particular expression only using the convergence properties of a geometric progression, right? So you remember there was a summation over n is equal to 0 to infinity. This expression is true only when the summation exists alone, right? So this approach will similar to the case of a continuous time unit step function. Here also there are additional complications. So let us see from computation what do we get. So let me so if I have x of omega as 1 upon 1 minus a into e to the power minus j omega, and if I plot the transform, it is something like this. Here I am plotting the real and the magnitude as and the angle. Let me change it slightly. So instead of the absolute value, let me plot the real and the imaginary part. Right, so here the top plot shows the real part of x of omega, and the bottom part shows the imaginary part of omega, x of omega, and at this for this the value of a is 0.7. So if I slowly increase the value of a, I should be getting closer to a unit step function, and my Fourier transform should also be closer to closely correspond to the Fourier transform of the unit step function, right? So you can see there are these impulses in the real part, right? What we want is a functional form, right? We don't want just numerical values. So let me make it even more closer to 1. Is a is 0.99. So you can now see these are similar to impulses. So here the axis is in terms of pi, right? So this 2 is actually 2 pi, 1 is 1 pi, minus 3 is minus 3 pi, right? So what we want is, we want the functional form for this, the real as well as the imaginary part, or the combined complex part. And that is what we have to derive, right? So I think I will stop this lecture here at this point, because the data, the file size might increase if I complete this derivation now. So I will upload the solution in the next lecture. You spend some time, a day, on this, and let's see how many new interesting types of derivations can you get, right? So we'll meet in the next lecture. Stay safe. Good day.